So, to catch y'all up, I watched the version of this movie that was edited for TV. And when I watched this on the streaming service with John and Gavin, it was a lot different. A lot more, what shall we say, nudity.
Sexual themes.
Sexual themes. And I was going to have more than one finger, but that's just the one finger. That's all that there was more of. So don't let your kids watch this movie. It's good. It has good themes, but it's just, they're not ready for it. Yeah. It has like very scary monsters with knives for hands.
And they cut off people's heads.
What happened to that
one? I wouldn't say 8. I'd say 50.
There's a
I'd say
goat man
I'd say 50.
at one
For
point.
like 10 seconds.
They're like, what if we just put a goat? I feel like that was a good bet. It's like, if you lose this bet, Snyder, then you have to put a goat man.
I would argue that 15 would be a kind of
well, that's luckily we never have to raise a child together, so weird.
Wait, how old were you when you saw this? Because I know you're only 18.
I know, but like again, I watched the edited for TV.
Okay. It is one of the more brutal movies, I will say.
Okay, the violence is up there, and like.
Literally, a guy gets in a very by the way, this is a little positive. There's a very good, cool scene, sad scene, where the father and his son gets killed, and he gets his head chopped off, and it literally just has a frontal view of it, and you see his head just kind of fall off.
And I'm not sure if a girl should be allowed to watch this movie because she's like 25.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, I don't know. Can you imagine a situation in which a girl watched this movie and a good outcome happened?
Yeah, I don't think any girl would have necessarily appreciate
no girl likes this movie.
It's a very manly movie for
sure. I mean, they like to stare at their abs for a while. I feel like even then they'd get bored with all the killing and all the goat man.
Yeah. Another negative of mine is the love scene. I just felt that it was unnecessary, like to even be in there.
Yeah, I would actually disagree.
Not just because we like obviously it's you don't like watch it, you just kind of look away. But like I just didn't feel like it was like necessary at all.
I thought it was tastefully added in the movie. Now I'm generally against sex scenes in movies, but the reason I'm taking issue with it at this point is because they thematically linked it to a lot of other events that happened. Like for example, they contrasted it with like when the other dude like raped her, and he made a point to point out it was like, I am not your king, and you got the thematic difference between like the good version and the bad version. Which if you're gonna include that kind of thing in a movie, that's not a bad way to do it, because a lot of stuff in modern movies today, when that is involves a lot of perversion. You know what I mean? It's like, it's bending the real thing, and at the very least, even if it's not optimal in this movie, it's like, this is the good way to do it, this is the bad way to do it, this can at least be educational. Also, it links to his final words, when he could not bring...
my love, right?
Yeah, he could not bring himself to say my love, and their relationship is important to his drive to fight, and that's his final words, and that links back to that scene, and so...
Well, it links back to...
And he gives the necklace to give back to
Right. So I think it's actually... Now, I see what you're saying, because generally I would agree with you.
No, I just thought that it was... Not that it was, like, too... So it actually wasn't really that...
It was pretty tasteful.
It wasn't even that, like, explicit, really. It was just kind of, like, a couple of shots.
It was suggestive, I'd say.
Yeah, it was just like, you knew what they were doing.
I mean, the tent scene with Xerxes was worse.
Yeah, I would say that was worse. That's a negative of mine. The love scene was unnecessary, I felt... But that scene was... Not that scene was, like... there needed to be a scene, obviously, where the hunchback goes to Xerxes. I mean, it would have been stupid to just not have a scene like that. It's just like, why did we not see that? They needed to have it in there. But, like, there's way too much exotic... There's way too much suggested in there, bro. It's like...
It's crazy.
I mean, he's like, they're wanting to give him, like, a lap dance and stuff, and it's just weird.
Yeah,
bro.
like, I see what they were trying to do, because they were like, look at these perverse Persians. Like, do you really
it's
want
supposed to
them
be
Greece?
I think they were trying to hit at, like, the hedonism of the Persians and stuff. But it was unnecessarily long.
Because I feel like they couldn't even like fit all the women in the tent.
I feel like, honestly, there was a better way they could have done that scene. It didn't need to be in like his like hedonistic tent.
How do you cast for that role?
I know, yeah. I know. What did you think of the Hunchback character?
The Hunchback character was cool.
I thought he was well used.
Yes.
No, I do think that this is another negative. I think that there should have been a scene. So after he goes and submits himself to Xerxes, then it's like a couple scenes later, the Arcadian guys like comes back to the camp as like they found the goat path, and it's like there was a battle, they all got slaughtered, and I feel like they need to like hit on that a little bit more.
Well, not all the Arcadians got killed because you could see them leaving the battle.
No. He just said the guards got killed. Remember, it was a slaughter. Yeah. There was no contest. I think that plot point about how he betrays them should have been hit on a little bit more there. It's kind of just like, oh, we got betrayed. Yeah. Now we're going to die gloriously. It's a very fast transition to me.
Yeah.
Between getting betrayed and being like, we're fighting a final battle.
On the subject of the goat path, there's something, the only plot little hole that I noticed, and we talked about this a little bit when we saw it in the movie, was when there's a scene where the hunchback comes and he's like, oh, Leonidas, can I fight for you? And Leonidas is like, no, you're a hunchback, you're not that valuable in battle, and if the phalanx gets broken, then
you can't lift the shield.
Then we'll all die, you can't lift the shield, so you can't fight for us. And so the guy's like, right in front of Leonidas, he's like, no, my mother and father were wrong, Sparta is terrible, and throws his shield and throws his spear. And Leonidas knows that he knows the way. He knows that he's ticked off at him, and he's so tone deaf that he turns around and walks down to his captain, and he goes, we need to make sure that no one tells the Persians where the path is.
That was stupid.
And I was like, bro, you just ticked off the one guy that knows, and you just left him up there. Like,
that was out of character. Leonidas, she would have literally just thrown him off the cliff.
It was so incredibly,
or at least just
brain dead.
Or he would have done something.
Yeah. You think Leonidas might have known, and he had kind of he didn't care?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, but
no.
You don't think so?
No. Okay. I think that was just a little brain lapse by the...
Yeah, so your negative is on the plot holder.
Yeah. And because there's so many different ways he could have handled that situation. Ranging...
Stabbed him.
First of all, you could have said yes and put him at the back of the phalanx. And he would have, by the time they get to the back of the phalanx, you're screwed anyway. So it's fine. Secondly, you could have killed him. I mean, that would have been worse than putting him at the back of the phalanx, but that would have been better than everyone getting slaughtered. Third, you could have restrained him.
Yeah.
Fourth, you could have given 2 of the Arcadians to escort him away.
Yeah.
There's just so... It was just a total fumble by Leonidas. I think he had it there and he fumbled it.
So my negative, just to clarify, was really, I just think there should have been a little bit more meat on the bone in that scene where they learned they'd been betrayed.
Yeah.
It was a very fast transition.
Oh, we're done.
It's like, we're done.
Yeah.
There should have been some more emotion. It felt like guys, we're gonna die. We're done. That we can't win this battle anymore. Felt very quick. But and then I had one more little nitpick. It was oh yeah, I love the scene. I love how you get to know a little bit of the characters, the side characters, but you don't really get to know them that much. And you're supposed to care about them a lot. You care about Leonidas, and you kind of there's these other guys that are fighting with him that obviously he cares about and they care about him, but you don't really get to know them at all. So you kind of don't care as much about them, except for the fact that they're fighting for Leonidas. And so I feel like if they had kind of developed those characters a little bit more, they would have been more. I would have been more invested.
I think there's so many little things in this movie that just don't make sense, but it's just fine because the movie's good. For example, he's climbing the mountain, and then there's stairs halfway up, and it's what?
You didn't. You weren't a big fan of that scene. Is that your
from
negative?
The historical accuracy point, but I didn't hate it.
That scene was just kind of weird. It's not really bad. It's just that's not a negative.
How would those guys? They said they were inbred, but there was no women. How did they get food up there? How did they get up there? Why is there stairs only?
Here's a little nitpick. I did not like having to watch that old zombie-looking man lick the woman.
That was terrible.
That was nasty.
And then, and there's other stuff where did Leonidas get the apple from?
Yeah,
they clearly he said eat hearty for
that was a sick one-liner.
They didn't bring anything. They had nothing.
That was the dying hell one.
And then some of the set pieces were unnecessarily fake looking, the little fake campfires they had. It was that looked like something you'd see in a Disney World ride. It's come on.
Maybe they ate the rhino.
Oh my gosh!
See,
they ate
that makes sense. See, that's what happened.
I mean, you're not wrong.
It all makes sense.
And then
now.
To cap off the little stupid things, when she kills the dude, and then which is the only bad lesson that I think the movie teaches is when she gets angry and kills him, and it solves everything. And then he has the money from the Persians, and it's bro,
because they bribed this guy.
If you're getting bribed from a foreign country and the currency looks different, leave the money when you're going to the meeting of the elders. Just leave the money at home. It'll be fine until you get back. Instead, he carries it right here.
First of all, there's another plot hole there. He wouldn't be able to use that currency in the city in Sparta.
Well,
so is he just like waiting for them to like take over Sparta so he can like spend it in the Persian Empire or something?
The irony of Sparta's currency too is made of iron, so it's useless everywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
That's to keep their economy closed.
Yeah, but I thought. Now I will say, I thought that actor was actually pretty good. He played a pretty menacing villain.
Oh, yeah.
Like he wasn't like a real intimidating villain, but he was like very like he was like kind of a creepy villain.
Yeah.
And he's like a political opportunist, and that guy did a really good job.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that wraps it up for negatives for
Maybe
me.
themes first or history, or did you don't have any big negatives?
No, I think
He literally got through with no negatives. I'd say like the
Yeah.
yellow thing.
Oh my gosh!
And I agree with the sexual references.
So the color, the scene in
and
Xerxes 10.
well, yeah,
So
I didn't like the Delphi stuff either, even though that was probably more accurate.
That's what I was saying. The Delphi scene.
I didn't like it just because of the sexual references, but
yeah.
I think it was probably pretty accurate. Although Delphi's in a cave. I'm not sure if that was supposed to be Delphi though.
Yeah,
I was confused. They were calling it something weird.
They called those guys like the E4s or something.
I don't know what that is.
And then they listen to the world.
Somebody comment because I don't know.
Anyway, I don't know.
And give me a source because.
But anyway, even though I do have a lot of nitpicks and stuff, this movie's really, like Nate said, a lot of just the epicness of this movie and the simple nature of it cancels out some of these negatives almost.
I mean, like
forget about some.
I like talking about the negatives, but it's just like kind of funny and lighthearted.
Yeah.
You know, like
it
doesn't make me hate the movie at all. I think you might disagree, but I think we should do history first to give Gavin
because they have a little more time.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a few thoughts.
So Gavin, this is a movie that many people claim it's not completely true to history.
Oh yeah.
So as a classic
I think that's kind of obvious.
It's actually all true.
Will you please react for us?
So I thought it was going to be a lot worse. People in my department have said this is like the most historically inaccurate thing I've ever seen, and I thought it was going to be like awfully atrocious. I liked how it kind of bordered the line of like Greek myth or like myth type stories, and it was like also had enough historical accuracy that I was like, yeah, this is happening in ancient Greece and is kind of close to the Persian Wars. And I'm like getting the vibes that I need to like make it happen. The problem is we don't know very much about this time period, right? Because it's so far away. Like in Gladiator, I mean, we have a lot more sources.
This is like way pre-Christ.
For sure. This is 400 years.
400 years pre-Christ.
I mean, almost 500 years.
Wow.
It said 480 is the year.
And I mean, Greece goes through a ton of turmoil after the Persian Wars, so a lot of the stuff we have is lost. I mean, Herodotus is probably one of our biggest sources on the Persian Wars, and so he tells us a little bit. But in summary, I think some of the big things that stick out as inaccuracies, the Persian army, it is said it was probably around 1 million.
Wow.
Which is crazy. The number of the Spartans was probably bigger than 300. I think actual Spartans. I think it really is 300.
Yeah, so from what I've read,
I think it doesn't take into account that the Spartans would have brought their slaves.
Yeah.
And so each Spartan has 2-3 slaves with them. So I mean that triples their number instantly. Would the slaves have been loyal and fight? I don't know how to answer that. I don't think. I mean, at that time, the Spartans experience a ton of slave revolts because they treat their slaves like crap. And so not sure how that would have impacted things. Maybe that was. What's 300 times 3? 900. I got there. Maybe that was 900 more people for them to fight. But the numbers are close, I would argue. Mm-hmm. Although it looks a lot more than 1 million people.
Do they have any reinforcements from other neighboring Greek city-states?
I think if I remember correctly, there might be, but I don't. So the movie messes. The reason that the Spartans don't go fight in the movie is because the creepy oracles up on the top of the mountain that Leonidas has to climb says, don't go fight. I don't remember why. Why did they say they shouldn't go fight?
Because it was a fest. There was a fest. It was like
no. That's actually the reason.
I know. Yeah.
I'm talking about in the movie.
The real reason is that they got paid off.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's like
Okay.
But they mentioned something like there was like a festival or something.
Did they mention that? I didn't.
That was their excuse.
That was their.
They were saying,
that was their excuse
the
in real
full moon is
life.
coming. There's a special festival, but like 2 seconds later, the movie makes it abundantly clear
They were bribed.
with literally.
But in real life, that was
there and be like, we will give you so much money and women. Yeah, that's so true. So okay, so the movie did talk about the festival, so that's good in my opinion. I mean, all the Spartans were in agreement that Leonidas should be sent. Leonidas was also very old. I think Gerard Butler looks like he's, I don't know, his 30s, early 30s. But Leonidas is, I think it's like 60, 70. He's way old. He's way old.
Gerard Butler was 38.
Well,
What?
Yeah, that's insane. Bro's looking good. So that's also another inaccuracy. But the Spartans were all on board with these guys going, and they were kind of supposed to be there. Their whole job was to just kind of hold them off till the festival was done, and then the Spartans would come and they'd come crush everybody.
So from what I read, it's just like what you're saying. Like it was like it says here the Spartans had already joined an alliance with other Greek police, whatever that word
which
means,
is just city-state,
against the Persians. And then the Xerxes invasion coincided with this festival called the Carneia. And it was like Spartans were not supposed to fight wars during that period. But like the Spartan government was behind Leonidas.
Yes, for
unlike
sure.
in the movie. And he like led them out. And it says here that there was probably around 300 Spartans. But that they were backed up by like 5,000. They were backed up by a bunch more of fellow Greeks. And then the whole number was somewhere around like 5,000 or 6,000.
Which compared to 1 million is still like very insignificant.
Not a lot.
And the strategy is the exact same that they use in the movie.
Right.
Like the idea that the Persians have to go.
Yeah.
If you think about Greece, it's super mountainous.
Yeah.
And so there actually genuinely isn't a good way to kind of get through except through this one spot. So that battle strategy is definitely there. And it is showcased a little bit here. Although there's moments where they like leave that space. And
You're talking about
everything's okay.
what do they call it? The
hot gates.
The hot gates, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so Gavin, does Herodotus tell us how long they hold off the Persians before they get killed?
I don't remember. I really
It
don't
says here
remember
that,
this.
from what I've read, it says that the Battle of Thermopylae was like kind of a crushing they got crushed.
They got smoked.
So in the movie, I mean, it's obviously this
It makes it
heroic
sound like
battle.
they made it a little bit.
It says in real life they got smoked.
Yeah,
like
got
it was
killed.
not
But it's just the fact that these 300 guys did that.
Yeah.
First, it morale boosts. I mean, everybody's talking about Thermopylae afterwards, even Athenians who hate the Spartans. And it just demoralizes the Persians that, oh my gosh, these 300 guys were actually willing to like.
But later in history, in the end of the movie, implies that there's this battle that later.
And they
what was that battle? What was that battle? You mentioned it.
Hey, is it a P?
Yeah, it starts with a P.
He said, here on this barren field called something.
Clyde, pool.
Anyway, there was a battle later that they defeated the Persians, right?
So. And it ultimately culminates in Marathon, which combined force, but mostly Athenians.
But I thought
beat
they said Marathon happened before this.
So if you think about it, right, Greece is this big spot, and Sparta's here, and Athens is here. And the invasion starts here, but the Persians end up going back around, and they try to invade through Marathon to Athens, and they get repulsed again. There's a moment in the movie too. It's really brief, but there's a big storm that comes and crushes a bunch of the Persian ships. Totally accurate. Maybe not as many people died in that, but yes, that totally happened.
From
a couple times with the Persians, they kind of struck out with
weather. I thought that Marathon in the movie, she mentions Marathon in her speech.
She did. I don't remember why that was important.
Marathon's after this.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one where the guy runs back.
Well, that's the legend.
The legend is that the Greek
in
runs
reality,
back 26
the
miles.
entire Greek army with their military stuff and everything runs back and does a marathon, and they
I
make it
thought
back.
there's one guy.
Well, that's the myth.
Okay.
But Herodotus will actually
he,
tell you
died?
that's actually untrue.
But in the legend, he dies when he gets back.
Yes.
He tells him that they won.
That's
and
the
he dies
legend.
right,
But dude, no Greek would have died after running a marathon. that was light work. That was nothing for them. So
no,
I mean, I do wonder in my mind, and I wonder if some Greek historian could correct me or something. Like, is this what type of shape would we expect the Spartans to be in? And I don't think this is obviously there are some muscles that don't get exercised in ancient, like, by moving a hoe or like by like swinging a sword and stuff like that. Like chest development like that probably is inaccurate. But I totally think like biceps, shoulder, abs. I think that's totally.
Although think how much lamer it'd look if you had a flat
chest. It's just like they just had to finish it.
So with the fight choreography, from what I read, it says that like this one, the guy that was heading up the choreography for the movie, since there's not a lot known about specific how the Greeks fought specifically, that he used a lot of martial arts techniques associated with Filipino martial arts specifically. That's a lot of the fight scenes in this movie. They use Filipino martial arts.
I think something that just sticks out, just military tactics wise, short spears. That's cool because that's what they had been using at that point. The Macedonians, which we saw in Alexandria, the ones introduced. Oh, what if we just made our spears a little longer? That might kill more people. And they also do some type of phalanx, which was kind of cool to see. And
I remember you hated on the phalanx in Troy because you said it wouldn't be what they did. Or when they
did it weird. Beach. Yeah, they made it look like the Roman phalanx where the shields go on top and they do like a little Tortuga thing.
Doesn't that have a different name?
Yeah, that's a Tortuga. But in this type of phalanx where it's just line by line, and then I like the very first part where the Persians like hit them. They don't like stab at them. They just like shields hit really hard. That's totally a thing. And the idea of a phalanx is the guy dies, right? And that there's a person that just takes a spot instantly. So it's weird because Leonidas tells the other guy he's disqualified. Why? Because if you break, then the whole thing breaks. That's actually untrue. The phalanx is designed to be like, oh, if you break, if you die, it's okay. Why? We got someone behind you. And the problem is when we run out of people to put in. So, I mean, I don't think it was a bad idea to put that guy in as cannon. Not cannon fodder.
Now,
it's a little heartless.
Does Herodotus say if a traitor gave them?
Yes, he did.
Around?
And from what I read, from what I've read, okay, according to this one historian, he said that, he was just talking about the betrayal of Ephialtes, which that was the name of the traitor.
Oh, that guy.
They know the name of the traitor. His name was, Ephialtes. But unlike in the movie, he was not a hunchback. He was just a well-trained soldier, just like the rest. And this historian had a lot of criticism about that, that they could turn him into this like hunchback. But he did say that like it was a defense of like Spartan eugenics and convenient, given that infanticide could as easily have been precipitated by an ill-omened birthmark. So he thought that they were kind of trying to show some stuff about Greek culture and how they viewed like these kind of like the Western.
That's one of the things they got right, isn't it? The infanticide.
Well, I actually was I've done some research on that just because I was interested in Spartan culture for a while, and I was really into Lycurgus, who was like the person who created Spartan law, and they were into that, especially just like picking and choosing who got training.
Yeah.
And there's this burial mound that we found that's like, I think it's like 45 bodies. And we were like, oh, this is it. This is where they killed their children. But it turns out they were all older people. And so we're not, you just have to be careful to like what people are saying, because like people that don't like Sparta are the ones that are saying these things. Like Plutarch, who's reporting on Lycurgus, is the one that's saying, oh yeah, they were killing their kids. So maybe that's not quite as accurate as we have thought. But it's not necessarily inaccurate. I think it was good that they included it, and that just meant
some other historians were real positive on the movie's portrayal of like the warrior side of Spartans and like their heroicness, like kind of just like their sense of honor.
The other thing though is I think they dog on the other Greeks for being like, oh, they suck. Spartans, they had it. The Athenians were just as kick butt as the Spartans were. And there's the moment where they're like, oh, they just fight kind of clumsy and stuff. Yeah. The Athenians are really well trained fighting.
You mean the Arcadians are the ones in the movie?
Yeah, I think they mix it for like Athenians.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's what this movie.
And also, historians really liked the fact that
Arcadia is another place.
Yeah. The historians also liked the fact apparently that the movie emphasized how the women's role. And like back home, and how like their role in like reinforcing that sense of honor within the men, and how they were kind of like they were like strong-willed women. They weren't like
they include real lines like the fight in the shade line, and then they also include the real line that is come back with your shield or on it, which is allegedly something that Spartan women would say. Really cool that they incorporated that kind of accuracy.
One historian, though, apparently got a kick out of the part where at one point in the movie, apparently Leonidas, I don't remember this part, but he refers to Athenians or Spartans as boy lovers.
Yeah. He refers to the Athenians as boy lovers.
Okay, Greeks. And in real life, though, it's kind of ironic that he says that because the Greeks were actually, there's something called institutional pederasty, which was like, I don't know, explain that, what is that?
I'm not explaining that! No!
That was a real part of Greek society.
Well, here's the thought.
The
thought was that older guys teach the younger guys.
Oh my god.
Right? That was the idea.
It says here it was a socially acknowledged romantic relationship between an older male, the Erastes,
you know what? Let's just go.
and a younger male.
This is PG. Nope, we're done.
Anyway,
we're done. I wasn't going to say it. He brought it up. I was going to keep that to myself. I wasn't going to go there.
Yo, that's wild.
The older male would teach the younger male and also get it. Yeah,
but sometimes it wasn't. A lot of times it wasn't romantic. It's just practical. I'm done.
Here's something I would love to get your thoughts on, Gavin.
Yeah.
I would love you to contrast the ideas of freedom that the movie preaches about and slave culture in Sparta.
Like, how could these people be fighting for freedom when they have tons of slaves?
Well, there seems like a disconnect there.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely there. I mean, you got to remember though that they are not necessarily fighting for freedom, individual freedom, as much as they're fighting for the polis's independence.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what they would have thought in real life.
Right. So
but in the movie, I feel like they're injecting Western modern themes into it.
Well, they can avoid that because they just don't mention slavery.
Right.
Because, like, are there slaves? I don't think they make a reference to it. No. Now, who has lots of slaves in this movie? Xerxes does. But it's the Spartans that have none, which is ironic.
Specifically slave women who do exotic dances so they can woo the trader.
Yeah. So, the Spartans would have had tons of slaves. They actually, there's a lot of, I could tell you so many stories, but there's actually a city, I can't remember the name of it. And there's a city, and it's actually bigger than Sparta. And it's right outside, and it's full of all their slaves that they just kind of...
I love when Nate said, you said they had to pay that girl a lot of money to like woo that hunchback.
Yeah, I mean, John's still on that part.
Yeah, no, but another thing, so a criticism historians had on this movie was that it does, like, let me pull it back.
Well, let me just get back
to sorry, finish what you were saying about that. Sorry.
I think the movie was able to sidestep that because they didn't even talk about the Spartans.
Do you think that was unfair, though?
I mean, again, the whole point was that we were supposed to make the look Spartans. I mean, the whole point isn't necessarily that, like, Spartan culture is... I mean, the movie's idealizing. Right? That's and exactly, so if they had done slavery, we would have been like, yeah, but how are you doing this? So they just take that out because we want to make sure that the virtue of freedom is shining through.
That's exactly the criticism I was about to mention. A lot of historians were kind of bugged at the fact that they make it, they idealize the Spartan culture so much and make the Persians all like these monsters, basically. But yeah, I mean, I can understand why historians would skip
the Greeks go and do it to the Persians just like a couple hundred years later. Like, they go in and they kill all of them. So, like, it's not like the Greeks were like, oh my gosh, you hurt my feelings. You came and invaded my city. No, but they were also like, we have independence and we are capable of beating you. I think just what wasn't really highlighted as much as like historians probably wanted was that the idea that polises are city-states and they operate independent of each other, but the fact that the polises realize that our independence is threatened, so we have to set aside our independence and work together.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to beat the and then we'll go back.
Now, in the story, they often reference a collective Greek identity. Would that have existed?
I was about to ask it. What's the whole setup of Greece?
It's so confusing. So it's really weird, and it depends on the different types of polis states you're talking to. Some do identify, so religion-wise, a lot of them identify together. Oh, we all believe in the same Olympic gods. But then it differs on, I believe in this oracle, or we have this hero. They have different stories about their heroes. And they also all have favorite gods that like favor their side. I mean, you can guess, Athens, Athena, Sparta, not 10 gods.